Now, for more on the issue, I'm joined by Middle East economy expert Michael Santo, who joins us live from Miami. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Now, Ariel briefly touched at the end there on just how dire the situation is becoming for the people in Afghanistan economically. I mean, we're hearing now that the banks are running out of money because people are fearing of a collapse of the banking system and are withdrawing all that they have. What could happen here regarding the banks?
I mean, it parallels actually a little bit what you saw in Lebanon or are seeing in Lebanon, but much, much worse, that the country can be actually cut off from the international banking system in this particular case. The United States doesn't trust Taliban because historically they've been allied and harbored terrorists, including Al-Qaeda, bin Laden's group that did 9/11. So right now the U.S. is actually holding up and freezing money that is critical for their banking system to operate. You do have a run on the banks, and you don't have any powerful international institution able and willing, whether it be the U.S., Europe, or the IMF to back them up. So that's one of the things that has to be resolved if Afghanistan is going to have a functioning banking system in the next few years.
And that's obviously not the only kind of economic instability that they are faced with. The price hikes on essential goods like flour, like Ariel just mentioned, are huge. How concerning is this as well?
Very. I mean, in a lot of cases, when you've seen a potential for an economic meltdown with a lot or maybe most of the people who know how to keep the country running, trying to flee or hide from the Taliban, you could have a breakdown of their economy. And that can involve disabling the providing of basic necessities like food and water and even shelter and healthcare. So it could get very dire. And the greatest powers in providing relief in international crises are also fleeing, the United States and Europeans. Once you eliminate the United States and Europe, there really isn't any other serious players. You even think about in earthquakes and famines, it's the United States and Europe that comes in, especially the United States. And we are kind of getting chased out. So it could be, at least in the short term, it could be, but hopefully not, a very dire humanitarian. It's not guaranteed. The Taliban do appear to be more pragmatic, perhaps. But if things really unravel economically, it does pose a threat of becoming a really imminent humanitarian crisis.
Now, you just mentioned there that the Taliban does seem to be a bit more pragmatic now than they were 20 years ago. Do we see, very briefly, do we see that the Taliban might actually take responsibility here in this situation now that the inflation is so high and actually step up and start providing for the people of Afghanistan?
I think they will have to be more practical. Otherwise, they will face a dire situation. But they can't do it alone. They need the help of others. And in the circumstances, they would be dependent on countries like the United States that they've been fighting for 20 years. So they're in a little bit of a bind. I don't think that even China, if it could go into this unstable, very dangerous country, has the capacity of the United States, to airlift food or medicine or whatever. But I think that's what they're trying to do. But it's a very bizarre situation of basically medieval extremist bandits taking over cities that we were transforming into modern cities. So there's not a lot of parallels around the world to this kind of scenario.
Absolutely. It does seem incredibly bizarre that a party that the world was once against, we're now having to sort of potentially come to agreements with in order to look after the Afghani people. Just stick with us though, Michael, because we are going to continue this conversation after the break when we return. Stick with us.